Welcome to IMUA Quick Bites, a micro-learning series featuring subject matter experts in the inland marine insurance industry. I'm Eileen Monreale, Education Training Specialist for IMUA, and I'm happy to welcome Joni Fagan, Global Technical and Expertise Manager, Large Corp Inland Marine Technical Manager, to talk about Warehouse 101. Welcome, Joni. Take it away.
Thank you, Eileen, for the opportunity to share the knowledge regarding warehousing. So this quick bite is called Warehousing 101 and is intended for underwriters as well as incipient loss control consultants on what questions should you ask when the submission comes into the door to assess the protection of that warehouse, right? So we're going to ask 5 questions. We're going to ask, where are the goods stored, the construction, what are we storing, what type of commodity, what arrangement are we storing, how high, how is protected, and then special considerations. So what is being stored? What is the construction of my warehousing? We use the ISO standards, as we all know, from mass timber, frame ISO 1 to ISO 6, that is fire resistive. You also need to have into consideration that the roof is not combustible. As we say in the industry, if that fire cuts to the roof, we kiss it goodbye because it's very difficult to put a fire once it hits the roof of the building. But this is a special consideration also when you have a refrigerated warehouse, that the construction of that warehouse could be a combustible sandwich panel that have 2 metal cores and a foam insulation in between. From the outside, you will think that it's a steel frame, but it could be a combustible sandwich panel. So keep that into consideration regarding construction of the warehouse. The other question is, what is being stored? What is my commodity that I'm storing in the warehouse? So NFPA 13 had classified all goods from a class 1 to a class 4, and then plastics, group A, B, and C. And this is based on the heat of combustion of the material being burned. Unfortunately, in this business, we learn how to protect spaces and things based on losses, right? So this is based on what type of material you have: metal, paper, wood, plastic. The higher you go into that arrow, the most challenging the fire is to put out because of the heat of combustion of the material. I want to show you this other slide because this is very, very important, because you need to also to assess the packaging of that product that you're storing. So for example, in here we have class 1 jars that don't burn. It's a class 1 commodity. But then again, you put it in a corrugated cardboard cartons, and that increases the commodity classification to a class 2. If we put that glass jar in the cardboard boxes on top of a plastic pallet, then that commodity increased from a class 1 right here to a class 4. So it's very important that you and the loss control representative assess the packaging of what is stored in your warehouse. The next one is, how is being stored? Are we storing it in racks or are we storing it in pallets? And if you can see here in the next slide, a palletized, to the left, you have the palletized photos of the warehouse. And as you can see, they are very stable and they have very little combustible to air ratio. But then again, when you look at the rack to your right, you see that it's the perfect combination of combustible material and air ratio. This one's right here is called a double row rack. They have to have a 4, 6, or 8 space in between those racks. So number 1, the fire does not jump to one rack and to the other, and also to assess the product that you want to move from that warehouse. And that is really, really important that you know what is the storage configuration. After that, the next question that we're going to ask is, how high is stored? And in loss control, we have, per NFPA, these 3 categories kind of give us a food for thought. If it's less than 12 feet, it could be protected with, a conventional sprinkler system, depending on what commodity are you using. But once you go from 12 to 25 or 25 over, it is more challenging to put that fire out based on the height of the storage as well. And then we need to assess that with the commodity and the sprinkler protection. And the sprinkler protection is the next one. How are we protecting this warehouse? Are we protecting it with sprinklers? Are we protecting it with detection, security, 24/7? It's very important to know that we use this matrix for underwriting as well as loss control in order to assess what does the facility have. So first question is, does the facility have sprinkler protection? If the answer is no, then we need to pause right here and check what other systems are available in order to somewhat protect that sprinkler warehouse adequately, right? Might not be the case in the US because of the NFPA codes that we abide by, but this is very important as well in other countries because they rely more on compartmentation and solid reinforced building construction. But if you ask that question that if they have sprinklers or not, and they tell you yes, you have two systems that are very important for warehousing. Number one is your conventional sprinkler system that may or may not have in-rack sprinklers, because remember that high that I told you from 12 to 25, 25 high, we need to assess it more in detail. But then again, if by the same token, they give you the name ESFR sprinklers, that stands for Early Suppression Fast Response Sprinkler System that was developed by FM Global in the 80s. This particular sprinkler head will put a fire out into the sepia stages with a lot of pressure and water, and that does not require in-rack sprinkler protection. So if you hear that the warehouse is protected by ESFR sprinkler protection, I say you are like 85, 90% out of the water uncertainty that it could be adequate. We need to take into consideration other design parameters such as obstructions and so on, water supply, but most of the time you should be okay if that warehouse is protected with the ESFR sprinkler. If it's, as I said again, if it's other systems, we need to pause again and do more analysis. So how Mr. Underwriter is going, Mrs. Underwriter is going to ask the ESFR sprinklers. One of the things that we hear from our underwriters is that they ask the agent or the producer to give us to the left is a fire sprinkler maintenance record. And what that tells us is that the sprinkler is being maintained. It does not give us the sprinkler design criteria in order for us to assess that it's protected well or not, right? So to the left, you see the sprinkler fire inspection maintenance record. To the right, you see a hydraulic placard system that is required by NFPA to be posted in the sprinkler riser, outlining the design criteria of the sprinkler system for the area, as well as the pressure and the water and the hose streams that is needed to protect that warehouse. Once you get your agent, as I said, your agent or your producer can give you a picture of these, and with us asking all the other questions, what is store, how high, and so forth, we can do a quick analysis to see where we stand regarding all the protection for that warehouse. Other consideration is what are my exposures? What are my exposures internally? For example, when we have our goods in a 3PL distribution warehouse that other tenants can expose to our own product within the warehouse, or if we have external neighbors that could hinder or expose my facility. For example, I was visiting a pharmaceutical plant in Puebla, Mexico, and next to the plant, it was methane spheres from other pharmaceutical plant in the area, which was exposing my insurer just because he was in the neighborhood of that plant, right? The other one that is very important also to check is the construction for NatCat purposes, right? If the construction is in accordance with the latest building code for wind in the area, if the facility, the warehouse is located in a flood zone location recognized by FEMA, such as flood zone AH, for example, that is a recognized flood zone by FEMA, and that has a phased finished flow elevation. So we want that warehouse to be constructed above the expected floating feet in the area where the warehouse is. Then there also are special considerations that you need to ask, because as I said, if you have a 3PL or distribution warehouse, especially when we're dealing with warehouse, legal liability warehouse, right? That you have a lot of products within one roof, you need to know what is being stored: flammable liquid, tires, cold storage. When you have a cold storage, you have, number one, it has to be insulated. So you need to take special consideration with those combustible sandwich panels that I talked in the beginning, the reconstruction question, but also you need to know that the refrigerant, for example, ammonia, can present another exposure for you just based on that the gas is flammable and could be explosive. So when you have questions like these special considerations, just reach out to your loss control representative that can help you. Once you gather all these questions from your producer, they can help you to assess if this warehouse is adequately protected for the storage and commodity conditions. I hope you find this very knowledgeable and interesting. I want to thank IMUA and Eileen for the invitation to share this Warehouse 101 with you guys. As I said, we use this to train our underwriters on loss control in our organization across the world. It has been very well received. I hope you receive it well as well. Thank you again.
Thank you, Joni. That was fantastic. One takeaway for me is that there is a lot to consider in underwriting warehouses. So thank you so much for that. If you would like to learn more about warehouse risks, IMUA members can visit the IMUA website for complimentary all-access education. Some of the on-demand webinars, including warehouse legal liability, refrigeration storage, baby, it's cold inside, and a few others, along with a white paper, are listed here. Thank you once again, Joni. That was really fantastic for advancing inland marine insurance education for our industry. So until next time, I'm Eileen Monreale with Quick Bites.
Thank you.